you. So how would you describe yourself? Just really informally, like if you were at a party.
Yeah, that's a funny one, isn't it? Because instantly my brain is like, what I do for work.
Exactly, yeah.
But okay, so I'm a fairly new mum, as
Yeah.
you've just established. A bit of a wild-hearted woman, I'd say. Got quite a fiery, rebellious streak at times that has worked in my favour and not in my favour at points in my life. Yeah, so I'm very much like connected to nature. I love to be outside doing things. I love to be physically active, which is really hard for me at the moment because I'm not getting much of that in terms of, well, I get a dog walk in where I'm carrying the baby, so technically it's physically active, but it's not like me being able to go rock climbing
It's
or
not fulfilling, yeah. When you've
yeah,
got like
yeah,
babies hanging off you and all the
yeah, it's just
shopping.
painful, really. Yeah. So I love to swim, I love to climb, I love to snowboard. I like to run. I used to be a yoga teacher before I left that at the start of last year. And yoga's been part of my life for probably about 15 years, I'd say, something like that. So since I was a teenager. So that's quite a big part of who I am, but more than like the yogic history of it, it's just the spirituality of it. So I'm very spiritual, and for me it's all about connection to nature and the elements, and working with those and working with the natural rhythms that we have. So I'm really into the concept of like rewilding ourselves, and doing that within our businesses as well, which is what this is how it's so hard to talk about me without talking about what I do for work, because it's like they're so interwoven, aren't they? So that's me. I've got my one little boy, I've got my husband, and we've got a three-legged dog as well.
Aww.
Yeah, he's a rescue dog. He originally came from Romania, but we got him from a rescue centre near to us. We're on the south coast of England. I think that pretty much sums me up.
Is he there with
very
you?
creative as well, I'd say.
You're very creative as well.
Yeah. Well, I studied design crafts and metalsmithing and jewelry making at university, and then I decided that actually I wanted to travel the world, and that wasn't practical to have a studio on wheels that came with me. So then I went into chef work, which was my way of being able to get work easily all over the world, doing that, and also bringing that level of creativity into the work that I was doing at that point in time, because there is quite a creative element to cooking, obviously.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I just wanted to interrupt you there, because I think that's absolutely magical that we have that that connection, because I did one of my previous lives was working with jewelry.
Oh really? No way. That's hilarious.
And I did it in a van.
Did you?
I had several parts of my business at that time, and the thing that was most mobile was the jewelry part.
Yeah, really?
Everything else was like impossible, basically. And so when we kitted out our van, it was basically like a hardcore, hippie van made from scratch.
Yeah.
When we kitted it out, I got the guy to make me a little desk, a little fold down desk for my jewelry making, and had all my like tools stored in it and everything.
Oh my God, I love it.
Had the propane torch and everything as well.
Yeah, love it.
And I used to park up and like just be making them up. But I was really self-conscious because obviously I had to have the door open. So I'd be like sawing away or like using the torch or something. And I'd just be like, God, I hope I don't and people did ask me. People would stop and ask me about it.
But I suppose it's quite a good publicity thing though, isn't it? People get curious, and then you get to tell them about what you're actually making.
I wasn't as confident at the time though, so I would just be like, I would just kind of hide in my shell and go, just please don't ask me about it.
Oh, yeah. I went with the sort of air travel approach, so that didn't really work in terms of kitting out a van at that point in time. Now it would be much more feasible, but yeah. So I sort of sidelined that aspect of my creativity, I suppose. And I keep saying I'm going to come back to it. I haven't yet. I will at some point.
But it comes out in other ways, you know, like, yeah, there's so many, like, that was part of like my creativity. I've done all kinds of things over the years, but I do really believe that we come to, especially in the moment, what is right for us, what is right for our souls at this time. And for me to go back to jewelry right now, like, I think of kind of making myself the odd thing, but
Mm.
even that, I don't know, I am definitely, I'm not in a fiddly stage of my life.
Yeah, I get that. Yeah. It's like, yeah, there's a level of preciseness needed, and small scale as well, small scale working for
Yes.
that. Um, so because I did jewelry making and metalsmithing, so small and big scale.
Oh,
I did more
awesome.
of the jewelry making side of things, but I do like big expressive movements, as I know you do, because I see you doing
Wow.
it on video, like big expressive movements. I used to do dance as well. I studied dance when I was at, not college, but it must have been GCSE.
Yeah.
So I like, that embodied sense that you can express more with bigger pieces, I think, for sure.
Yeah. Oh, I love that. Oh, tell me more about that then. So your dance, you know, do you bring that into kind of anything in your current work in some way?
Yeah, well, I mean, you can see how the dance would lead into the yoga, which would lead into
Yeah.
the teaching of that. What I do as a conscious business and embodied leadership coach is a lot of it is about embodiment. And so
Yes.
it is using the body and it's accessing the body. And it's actually becoming like really highly attuned to what's going on in our physicality, and bringing that off of the yoga mat or out of the dance studio and into our day-to-day lives and into the way that we show up in our business, or into the way that we show up when we're
Yeah.
creating an artwork or channeling something, like channeling our energy in some way. And
Yeah.
so yeah, definitely like bringing that level of awareness and that attunement in is it's so powerful. And I feel like it's this missing piece of the puzzle that a lot of people don't talk about, and don't like, if you think about the business world as a whole, it's quite, in my head, and this is like the story I always had about it, which is really interesting because it was like I always kind of rejected the idea of business, of like having a
Yes.
business or having anything to do with business, because to me at that point in my life, my perception of it was that it was really dry. It was like in grayscale. There was no color or vibrancy to it. It was full of stuffy old men.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I didn't see it as a creative process at
Yeah.
all. I saw it as this horrible, dull, lifeless, soulless thing.
I
Which is,
totally hear you. Yeah.
yeah, but it's so hilarious because I look back now and I'm like, oh my God, and here I am coaching people on business. It's like I've done this full circle, completely changed my perception and my understanding and like the mindset shifts and everything around it. Not not because I decided to, but I, you know how it is when you look back along the trail
Yeah.
of breadcrumbs and there's this whole organic journey that's
It
unfolded
was your soul knew all along, and it was just
all
kind of,
along,
yeah.
all along. And I find it hilarious because the universe is like, ha, it's
Yeah.
like this is, just pulled its biggest trump card.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I find that really, really funny. But yeah, completely obviously changed my view on it now, and it is this immense creative process. It's like the ultimate creative energy to take a vision, an idea, and bring it into reality. And ultimately, that's what we're doing with our businesses.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh my God, I love this. Like, I could talk about this all day long, just this little piece, because, and well, it's not a little piece. You know, I also believe like this is the biggest piece that has been missing in our society, not just in business, but in our society for so long. And it is that, you know, you really touched upon it about that being, you know, very kind of masculine energy. This is the way things are done. You know, you've got all of these structures and systems and you've got to fit into them, and
Yeah.
that's not how feminine energy works at all. And so that's why we're here
Yeah.
doing our thing and really embracing it, because we need to redress that balance so
Mhm.
badly, so
Mm.
badly, for all of us, you know,
Yeah.
not just people who have businesses, but and not just kind of the business world or even the creative world. But I really believe like our planet, or yeah, our planet right now needs this balance redress so badly for
Absolutely.
souls.
Yeah, yeah. And really that is how I came to be doing the conscious business coaching that I'm doing now. It's not because I wanted to coach on business to start with.
Yeah.
What I wanted to do was change and re-harmonize the energy of the planet, because I'm a massive eco warrior. You
Yeah.
know, I want to see the environment and people and the animals and everything within that flourish in harmony with one another. And to me it was like the obvious issue is this huge imbalance of masculine feminine energy in the world. And just to clarify, we're not talking men and women. I'm sure,
Yeah.
oh, my earrings just come out. I'm
Got
sure,
so
I mean, you
excited.
know that, and I'm sure most people listening to that know that, understand that. But yeah, so there's this huge imbalance, and this is why we see, like, on the external world, the planet is like burning up. We've got all of these forest fires. It was beginning of last year, wasn't it? Australia was on fire. I think massive parts of the Amazon were on fire, and you could see this happening all over the place. And then internally, in terms of our individual selves, everyone's burning out. Everyone's really high anxiety. We're all
Yeah.
overheated in that
Yeah.
yang fire, and everyone's burning out. And this was part of my journey. I went through burnout twice, and so I was reflecting upon what was going on inside for me, but also seeing how that is a reflection of what's going on outside.
Yeah.
And then it was that journey and that desire to bring that balance back into the world that really inspired me to help other women, like heart-centered women, and um, feminine energies, and help them to step into and bring their visions to life. Because usually it's a more what's the word I'm looking for, compassionate
Yes.
approach,
Yeah.
and there is a sense of creating something to have a positive impact rather than just to push the profit margin through the roof at the expense of people, planet, whatever it might be.
Yes.
So, and having more empowered women step into leadership positions where they are creating those cultures of a more harmonious way of being, of having that
Oh,
integration. And it really is the integration of masculine and feminine as well. There's like so much on the one hand this isn't talked about at all, and then on the other hand in a certain small sect of
yeah.
people like ourselves it's talked about a lot, and a lot of it is focused on just the feminine energy
Yes.
now, which is totally valid because that is the one that
It's
has
been out of
been
balance. Yeah.
repressed and is
Yeah.
out of balance. But also that I'm strongly believing there needs to be a focus and an understanding that it's the integration of the two coming together that
Yeah.
really
Yeah.
supports
Yeah.
us.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah,
Mm,
and also because there's and I've noticed this within myself and my own journey. um I've noticed that there's been actually quite an aversion to that masculine energy in terms of like, so for to take one small example, and I touched upon it earlier, was that I used to be a very analytical, very academic, very kind of, in my head kind of person. And you know that was what was nurtured in me because I had a good brain. I was intelligent. Went to did all the things. Got all the degrees. And that's what I felt was my strength. And so that was where, but then it was at the cost of everything else.
mm,
So when I kind of went through like multiple chronic conditions and like trying to heal those and all of the rest of it, I realized, oh, actually I've got to dive into this other part of me, this other side, the more feminine, the softer, the yin. And actually had so much resistance to that in the beginning. But then when you see the results, you see how that starts to kind of redress the balance within yourself. you
mm.
There's also a kind of a resistance to, oh well, that was bad. All of that masculine stuff was bad for me. No, 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 it was just out of balance.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. There's so much truth in that, and like that's so interesting because that's I think this is true for a lot of women. I was going to say that's a very similar sort of spiral that I went on, but I think actually it's very true of a lot of women within our culture, because we do have this separation from the feminine at a young age, because we have a society that conditions us to play upon our masculine side and to emphasize that and to shut down that feminine side of ourselves. And so it was very similar for me, that I went way into the masculine. I was also, I did very well at school. I was
Yeah.
quite brain intelligence oriented, even though
Yes.
I was doing dance and I was doing yoga and I was doing these other things, but it was always the emphasis on the knowledge, the
Yes.
intellect.
Yeah.
And I went down that journey of believing that to be doing all the time, again,
Yeah.
that masculine energy, that go, 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 that do, that was my way of, in a way, sort of validating my existence, like proving my worth. Because if I was doing and I was being productive and I was active and I was busy,
Yeah.
then I was valuable, and
Yes.
I earned my place in society. And I went way down that path and way burnt myself out because it was
Yeah.
completely out of balance. And I think that's the thing, is like, we talk about the balance between the masculine and feminine, and it is about balance, but it's also about the evolution of the two energies. So we can have that sort of shadow masculine, which is the one that drives us and to the point of destruction,
Yeah.
or we can have an evolved masculine that provides the structure and
Yeah.
the support, we can call it,
Yes.
for the
That's a good
feminine,
word.
without shutting it down, or without crushing the feminine in that. And,
Yeah.
and likewise with the feminine, because we can all go way too much into the feminine as well and be very yin and very floaty
Yeah.
and have all the ideas, but actually don't have that divine masculine to bring that into the tangible reality as well.
Yeah. And I've got to confess, I kind of love that space.
Yeah. But it's great. And but I was like you, I completely shunned it for a long time. Like, anything that was described as soft, if something was
Yes.
like
Yeah.
fluffy or pink, or
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
know any of those stereotypical things, I really, really rejected them strongly.
Same. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's curious as well, because even I started yoga at 18, but then I kind of left it, went through various other kind of paths for a bit, and came back to it around the time before after I had my first child, I think. And so I was 29, and then got really deeply into it, did my yoga teacher training, all the things. But even right at the beginning, well, not right at the beginning, even quite far into that journey, um, I I did not resonate with things like, well, yin yoga, that the whole idea of yin yoga. I was very much into Ashtanga yoga, uh,
Yeah.
you know, um, but also even within the Ashtanga tradition, there is, an observance of moon cycles.
Mm.
And I just didn't understand that. And our own, feminine cycles as well. I was like, what does it matter if I've got my period, or, I just did, I was so disconnected culturally, but also,
Yeah.
within myself from my own cycles, that I didn't see that there was that much of a difference
Yeah.
energetically.
Yeah. I'd
And
agree with that for
yeah,
myself as well, for a long time. And we're just not taught that, are we? We don't have that information and that wisdom at a younger age, when we're coming into our cycles and our adult rhythms. It
yeah,
was it was there was no talk of that at all whatsoever.
yeah.
It's
But so
definitely something I've come to as I've gotten older. And I'd say, like with that, what I was mentioning about rewilding, for me, that is about coming back into alignment with those natural rhythms and cycles as
yeah,
well. Mm.
yeah. Yeah, I love it. I was swimming at the weekend in the sea, and it was just I've just said to a couple of good friends, I took all my rage, took all my frustration, and just let it like totally dissipate in the freezing sea. It was amazing.
Yeah, let the ocean wash it away, carry it away. That's a
Oh god.
journey.
Yeah, so we were talking about the masculine and feminine, and but about also how we're really needing to bring that so much back into balance at the moment. And I wonder, is there an example in your from your own life where that really kind of was like it really made like a huge difference for you?
Mm, yeah, and I mentioned it a couple of times that I've been through a process of burning out. So I was working as a chef for about 9 years in the end, and through that, just got really burnt out in the
Yes,
process of,
imagine.
yeah, long shifts, and they were always, and that was what brought me back to like the rewilding process and coming back to those natural rhythms, was because I got so burnt out and I spent so long working through the night under artificial light, and
Oh yeah,
I was working all evenings and weekends and late night shifts. So my whole body clock, my whole circadian rhythm was completely out of whack.
yeah,
I actually came off the pill, the contraceptive pill,
yeah.
and we're going back, so I don't know how long ago this was, 7 years ago or something now. And from that, it took me 3 years to get my cycle back.
I can
So
imagine. Yeah,
yeah, and that was partly because I was so burnt out, and partly because I think I'd just been on the pill for so long.
yeah,
Um, and so I went through that whole process of realigning, like resetting my body clock. So I left chefing,
yeah.
and that was when I retrained as a yoga teacher. And so I was yoga teaching then, and I got really kind of boundaried in a way around like my evenings, my sacred evening time and my sacred morning time was mine, and I didn't work after a certain point. I didn't have the lights on after a certain point. Like,
Oh, well done. That's
yeah, we still do this
fabulous.
now because we've got dimmer switches, so we just dim the lights right
Yeah,
down after a certain point, and and that also changes whether it's winter or
yeah,
summer. So we'll have
yeah.
longer days in the summer, and we have the shorter hours of artificial light in the winter as well. And so that brought everything back home almost internally for myself, and like was really healing. And at the same time, I left that career and I went self-employed and started my own business in wellness area. So I was doing yoga teaching, but I was also doing food as medicine and
Yeah,
nutritional therapy chef work.
yeah.
And ironically, I recreated the scenario
Yeah,
again where I was just overworking, and I got into a second burnout really. And
yeah.
at that point I was like, okay, it wasn't necessarily the job I was in before, but it was my mentality
Yes,
and the way I was showing up in the day to
yes,
day. And that's when I started questioning, like, why do I feel driven to show up that way? Like, why do I feel compelled to always be
yeah.
on and always be working? And that was when, that at that point, I had a real like moment of reckoning of everything I thought was true about the world, that I had to be showing up in this way to be accepted, to be valuable, that that faster is better, that more is better, that yeah, just being always on and always doing was a good thing, and that
Yeah.
by doing that I was being a good girl.
Oh, the good
I was
girl.
ticking all
Yes.
the boxes and doing what I should be doing. And then I had this, like, that journey, that second bout of burnout was like, oh, and I can't remember exactly what it was. I think maybe I watched something or I read something, and I just had this sort of crumbling of everything that I thought to be true about the world, and was like, oh, actually, it is okay to be slow. It's
Yeah.
okay to be soft.
Yeah.
What these things are okay. I can do that.
Yeah.
And I had about 3 weeks where I was like completely. It was like my legs had been kicked out from underneath me. Like I was completely wobbling all over the place because
No
I had no
foundation.
real
Yeah.
sense of anchoring into
Yeah.
any truth at that point. Like what I thought had always been true was like
Yes.
and was my reality had just been like knocked off course. I was like, oh, okay. So if that's not true, then what is? Like, who am I? How do I show up?
Yeah.
And that was when my journey into like the more feminine and embracing those parts and bringing them forth
Yeah.
really began. Yeah. And it
Oh my
changed a lot. It changed a lot of things for me. And there is still that part of me that diverts or reverts. What's the word I want? Defaults
God.
or reverts. Defaults to that more like hyper masculine
Of
energy
course.
if I don't have that awareness around it.
Yeah, because that's our long-term conditioning, isn't it? So,
Mm,
it is hard. Definitely is hard to kind of erase that completely. But as you say, it's not about erasing it either. It's just about rebalancing it. And yeah, I love the whole rewilding. I was going to say concept, just not a concept, practice.
yeah.
Because it is so much about coming back to what is, we are nature. Yes, we've kind of, I think I've described it before as like we're domesticated.
Mm,
Like our cats and dogs were domesticated. So we are a little bit changed, but we are nature. And as such, we can try and divorce ourselves and kind of create artificial boundaries, like you see, like artificial lighting, artificial kind of, the concept of time. Like, well, it's 8 o'clock in the evening and I don't want to go to bed yet, so therefore I won't. But at the end of the day, we all have these inbuilt rhythms and needs that
yeah.
we're denying, that we're suppressing. And the moment you start to rewild, to go back to your natural state, or at least kind of towards it, your body does go through this massive healing kind of process. It really begins. It's like, oh, you've stopped stressing me out quite so much
Yeah.
on every possible level.
Yeah.
This feels better.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that's exactly it. Like we spend so much time fighting and so much energy fighting against our own biology
Yeah,
and creating that friction and that resistance. And it's, for me, it's why there is so much chronic illness in the world right
yeah,
now. Is because we're going against the very things that help us to thrive. Like it's not like we just landed here on this planet. We co-evolved with everything on this planet. The hours of daylight, the oceans and the rivers, the other plants and the organisms. Like we co-evolved with them. We're
yeah.
not. We haven't just landed from outer space and can live in these little
In
bubbles
perfect
and
little plastic boxes. Yeah,
yeah, and wonder why we don't feel good. Wonder why we feel like shit most of the time, you
yeah.
know? So yeah, just rewilding and reconnecting, like coming home to the truth of what we are and what our part is in the whole.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And realizing that it doesn't have to be, again, coming back to the masculine, but that kind of hierarchical thing of, well, we're at the top of the food chain, therefore, we can control everything and it will all be fine.
Yeah, yeah. And the irony is we're not even at the top of the food chain. Things
No,
feed off us all
no.
the time, you know? It's just it's such an deluded way of seeing things that we sit at the top on our perch above everything else, and everything else happens down there below us, and we're separate and special in some way. And actually, we're it's like I always think about mycelium when I think about our place in the nature of everything. It's this web, it's a network, it's a this huge vast network that we are interconnected with everything else with in multi-dimensional
Yeah,
ways. It's not an up down. There is no up or down.
yeah.
That's again is a human construct.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely.
And
Oh my God, love that.
yeah, oh, I just love it. I just love talking about this stuff, and you know, I go on for so long. But the other thing I love about it is bringing these concepts into business as well, because that's another place where I see that sort of separation, that division. It's like, well, this is business and it's serious and it's hierarchical, especially
Yeah.
like 99.9% of businesses, that's how they're built. And that's the structures within teams, in companies and things like that. And they're very, sort of serious and dry, can be. And then you've got
I'm
this
very head up as well.
very
So
head up,
there's
yeah.
coming back to, sorry, I didn't want to interrupt you quite
No,
so
no,
much,
great, I
but,
love it.
but the concept of integration, which you touched on earlier in terms of masculine and feminine, but for me, very much, our kind of our government systems, our business systems, they're all head up, and nothing is integrated with the full body at all.
Yeah,
And that to me is so dangerous.
so dangerous. Yeah, and it loops back to what we were talking about, like that embodiment piece that's missing from most things, but particularly like the world of politics and the world of business and these things. And so it is exactly what you said, like reintegrating mind and body, and reintegrating like the tangible manifestation and the spiritual side of
Yeah.
things within
Yeah.
business as well, bringing those together. I think there's just so much power in that and so much importance in that.
Yeah, no, I absolutely agree. I feel like for my part that that is where I'm kind of now, in that space of, oh, I can actually put myself into this energetic state and basically I don't want to be too woolly about this, but it is woolly, let's face it. Magnetize things, like ask for things to come into my field. And if I'm very conscious, if I'm very kind of aware and very trusting, then those things come into my field.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But and we can talk about law of attraction and all the rest of it, but at the end of the day, for me, it's actually a very visceral experience. It's
Mm-hmm.
not woolly. It's not kind of, well, if I think about it, think about it, it's going to happen. It's not that. It's very much, it's everything. It's all of our energetic bubble, if you like.
Yeah,
Going to fill that
absolutely.
energetic bubble with intention in order for the magic to happen, basically.
Yeah, it's so true. And I think that's a big piece as well that's missing, like from a lot of coaching, especially in the coaching world, which I can speak to because I'm in that. But a lot of it is head oriented as
Yeah.
well. It's all about thinking your way into your next thing, and like what are the logical steps we need to take, and create the
5
list,
steps to
do this.
doing this. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And it's again, this piece is missing, where, and it's exactly what you talk about, like that energetic alignment is what actually activates within ourselves the future that we want to call in, which then enables it. And so, we can go into the neuroscience of it. There is science behind it,
Yeah, yeah.
and really it's not that there's science behind it, it's that science has observed it and given language to it, because
Yes.
this is the other thing that I'm quite big about, is bringing together science and spirituality, like that fusion of the two, because ultimately science is just a way of explaining the nature of reality
Yeah,
as it has so far been observed by humans,
yeah,
and their spirituality is also doing the same thing. They're just
yeah,
using different language,
yeah.
and the majority of spiritual traditions contain a whole lot more information than science has yet been able to measure in a
So much.
tangible way.
Yeah,
So it's
yeah,
like, I always think of it like trying to measure Everest with a 30 centimeter ruler. That's what science is. It
yeah.
doesn't mean that the rest of Everest doesn't exist and isn't there.
Absolutely. And I absolutely love that analogy. And what it brought to my mind was, the idea of, we're this tiny little planet in our tiny little galaxy, in literally billions and billions of galaxies. And, we might not even know how many universes, or, that's the current realm of our understanding. But even within that, it's like, well, how can you possibly think that on our planet, within all of that, is the only conscious life, the only intelligence, how can you possibly think that?
Yeah, exactly.
That's like science versus spirituality. It's like,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, I totally get what you're saying there. So because science is very much like, because we haven't yet measured it, it
yeah,
doesn't exist.
yeah.
Whereas
Or because
spirituality
we
is like,
can't measure it.
because we can't measure it, because we haven't yet conceived of the tools to be able to measure something, then it can't exist. Well, that's just ridiculous, isn't it? It's like, out of, like you say, out of all of the entire multiverse of existence, the fact that we haven't conceived of a tool that can measure that yet doesn't mean it's not there.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Oh my god, let's bring it back from that mind blowing
We've just gone big.
something a little bit more concrete. And because we've got this, I think there's so much richness here that honestly, certainly myself, well, now today definitely, but especially from 5-10 years ago, I would be like, I want some of that. How do I do it? Give me some like tips or tools or whatever on how I can access some of that for myself. So what do you do to come back to the core of who you are and who you really feel like what your purpose is on this earth, and
Mm.
like really getting to the depths of that when you spiral out of it? How do you come back to that?
You know what I've always done since I was a kid, since I was a little kid, and then this has always been like an instinctive, intuitive thing for me to do. I never really thought about it or understood it until like looking back when I was older, and I'm like, oh yeah, I get what's happening now when I go and do this. But I go out into really wild weather, and I
Oh,
will stand in the middle of a storm, or I'll stand in the wind and the rain, and to me I feel so alive and so connected in that state, and it's just so invigorating, and it just brings me back to, well, one, my insignificance, and two, how I'm part of everything, like how I am
yeah,
everywhere and everything all at once, at the same time as being like this tiny speck of dust on a rock
yeah,
flying through space. And I think I, there's something in that juxtaposition, and just the raw energy of Mother Nature flowing through me, that reconnects me to the wholeness of everything and gets me way out of my head. Like if I'm up in the headspace, it's
yeah,
usually because I've been indoors for too long, and maybe I haven't been on the computer for too long, or been reading a lot. And then it's like, well, it depends what I'm reading. Actually, some things that I'm reading take me out.
mm.
But yeah, and then I'll get out, and it brings me home to the truth of who I am, and
I
just
freaking
yeah.
love that. And
Mm,
I really resonate with it as well, because I was exactly the same, and actually that sparked a memory for me because it's something that I don't really think about. But I used to go out in all weathers, wearing like shorts. And I would just I would just kind of sit and breathe it in. And I remember there's like at least a couple of instances where it was like the middle of winter, it was freaking cold, and when you're in the cold, and your automatic reaction is, "Whoa," just like warm yourself up. And what I would do is I would not deny that feeling, but like move beyond it.
mm,
So there's this idea of just kind of sinking into, okay, it's cold and I'm here, and I'm just allowing the cold to kind of seep into me, and actually enjoying that feeling. There was a feeling of just, being part of it all and not resisting it.
mm.
And I love that you said that, because it took me back to that, because we do live lives of comfort.
Yeah.
And it's so easy to think, oh my God, why would you want to do that?
so invigorating. It's so invigorating, and it's and that would be my one. And there are obviously other practices like yoga and dance and things where I move my body,
Yeah,
even going running
yeah,
as well, or just even walking up the hill. But yeah, just like being really, that's my favorite, is to really be out there and be exposed and be vulnerable in a way. But
yes,
yeah, it just, it washes away all of the insignificant details of life that we think are so important, and
yeah.
ultimately they just don't matter when you look and you feel and you get in touch with that bigger self, that bigger picture.
Oh my God, yeah.
Mm,
I really, really love that. Yeah. Oh, thank you.
yeah, you're welcome. People used to think I was mad. Like I was a 13, 14-year-old girl. I used to go up to the top because grew up by the ocean, so we'd have these big storms blowing off the sea. These huge waves would crash over the breakwater, and I'd be up on the cliff tops
Yeah,
at night in the storm. People are like, "Oh my god!"
yeah. Oh man, I think we would have had a crazy time if we'd been friends. That would have been awesome.
Yeah. There's still time. Do you do cold water swimming? I'm curious.
I do, I do.
Yeah, I was going to say, talking about the cold like that.
We live about an hour from the sea, less if it's quiet, but we do have a river nearby, and I've been in the river a few times, but I have more concerns about the river, especially because it's going through town. So we live in a
Mm,
small town, so I have more concerns about kind of pollution and stuff, especially after rain and all the rest of it. So I tend not to go in the river full body that much. I'll paddle quite a lot, but yeah, the sea I would do it every day if I could, but it's
mm.
traveling. So yeah,
Yeah, yeah. It is. It's amazing though. I love it.
yeah,
I don't do it every day. I'm only about 20 minutes from the sea, but I tend to just, at the minute, I'm just cold showering because I don't really get a lot of time to myself with the little ones. So, like cold shower,
yes.
that's me. But yeah, it's that same. And also doing that, you get that rush of endorphins as well, which is I
I
like.
had a cold shower this morning.
Yeah, me too.
So, if you told me even a year ago, actually, that I'd be cold showering, I'd be like, yeah, right, okay. One, I hated showers for all kinds of reasons that I won't go into right now, but yeah, I would. I was a bath girl, being a bath girl for a long time, and what I've discovered actually recently. So I did start cold showers quite a few months ago. I can't remember exactly when. Um, but what I discovered was even more amazing is having an Epsom salt bath, which totally resets and recharges,
Mm,
um, and kind of helps to cleanse yourself inside out, and then have a cold shower.
that sounds brilliant.
It's like a magic duo.
Sit in the bath, you get warm in the bath,
Yeah,
I guess, yeah,
yeah,
and then have the cold shower. I need to do that. So
yeah,
it's funny that you say you've been a bath person for a long time, 'cause I was the flip side of that, was always a shower for, like,
yeah,
most of my life because, and this is how much into the masculine go, go, go I was, baths took too long.
yeah,
They were not efficient enough. I had to have a shower because it was faster. I had to get in, get out, get on to the next thing.
yeah.
And so baths, it sounds funny when I say this, but I've only just recently started bathing. But
Maybe.
yeah, actually having baths has probably only been the last sort of 2, 3 years for me.
Yeah, yeah,
And I love them now.
yeah,
I love them,
yeah, yeah,
especially with the Epsom salt. But yeah, I'm definitely going to try that Epsom salt bath and then the cold shower.
yeah.
Amazing.
And actually, because I'm quite efficient with it, so I can do both of those in half an hour. So
Yeah. Give yourself a little bit of relaxation time, but not too much.
exactly, exactly. Yeah. No, I can't do hour-long baths anymore. It's anyway, that's all by the by. But yeah,
Yeah.
no, that is a really magic duo. And then I go and do some shaking to kind of warm myself back up again, and some yoga, and yeah, it's all brilliant. So that's what I'm doing right now. As you probably do as well, your practice probably shifts and changes and evolves, and yeah.
Especially a lot at the moment where I have no real there's no routine to my days. It
Yeah,
can
yeah,
be,
yeah,
it
yeah.
can go one way or another. So it's like, today I managed to have a cold shower, and I was like, this is brilliant. Yes. And yesterday
Yeah.
I didn't manage it at all.
Yeah, no, absolutely. You know, especially with an 8-month-old, that's, you know, getting in the shower at all is an achievement.
I literally sit him in the doorway. He's got this little chair he sits in and watches me in the shower so that he can see that I'm still there. I haven't gone anywhere, and that I can see him as well. So
God.
yeah, it's quite funny. Quite
Oh.
funny. Mm.
So gosh, I think we've covered so much, honestly. I think what I'd love to end on is, and I think we've probably touched on this as well already, but I guess, what do you see our path like as a species? What do you see our path kind of going in the next 50 years, and what do you think we really need to take on that path with us?
Mm. I mean, there's like the hopeful part of me and there's the cynical part of me.
Yeah,
I'm going to lean towards the hopeful part.
you can embrace both.
Yeah, I can embrace both. You're right. I can. Um, I think I take it back actually to when the first lockdown happened last year, and I was like, oh my god, yes, this is it! Like finally, we've been given this like sacred opportunity to pause, to hit the pause button. I don't know if you ever watched Bernard's Watch growing up. Do you know that?
No, I didn't know.
It's a kids' TV show anyway. He's got a magic watch and he can stop time,
Okay.
and I always thought that was a brilliant thing. Like that's amazing, and I had always wished I had Bernard's watch because I wanted to pause, because I never gave myself time to slow down. Interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah. But my perception of that was like, this is the moment, this is the Bernard's watch moment of the world. Like we get to hit the pause button
Yeah.
and slow everything down and have this like reconnecting to what is important to us
Yeah.
as people and as a species and as a collective on this planet. And so I was like really, really celebrating that point in time. I know a lot of people weren't, but I was. And there was no cars on the road, there were no planes in the sky.
It's
And
so much quieter at night
it
as well.
yeah, it was so peaceful. And I had this vision that like this was it, we'd be moving forward in a different way now. Like we'd restructure or rebuild society in a healthier, more holistic, more harmonized way.
Yeah.
And so that's like the hopeful part of me. That's what I see for us going forward. And then the cynical part of me, when that lockdown ended and the traffic on the roads went way back the other way and all of these things started up again, I was like, oh wow, that was silly to think that could ever that could
Yeah.
ever change so dramatically in such a short amount of time. But I do see, like, I honestly believe we're coming to, or we have come to, a tipping point
Yeah.
where the level of awareness is going to continue to escalate and speed up. And so the shift from sort of that unconscious way of living to a more conscious way of living as well is going to speed up and is going to become the norm rather than like the weird the weird hippies on the side who just
Yeah.
talk about this airy fairy stuff, which actually it's not. It's all totally valid. I do think we'll come to that point. I think we're at that point. I'm hopeful we're at that point. And so going forward, it's going to be about building connection and collaboration and working as a collective instead of this sort of hyper individualization and this kind of hyper independence that we in our society anyway are focused on at the moment, where we're all these like individual bubbles and we don't have anything to do with anyone else or
Yeah.
any other species or or any other plants or anything. That's what I'm hopeful for.
Mm, yeah. I'm with you.
Mm. It's happening as well. I do see it happening.
Yeah, I do too.
Definitely. Yeah, there's definitely a shift going on. How long that will take for it to become the status quo, I don't know. And
Yeah,
it may be that there's like not ever a one, one point of arrival, but it's that constant evolution, isn't it?
absolutely. I think at the moment we're in that kind of battle of the old world and the new world, and it's, yeah, how long that will take to kind of,
Yeah, for the old world to fizzle away, the old way of viewing things to sort of be released, let go of. And
yeah,
that's the big thing, like people are really afraid to let go of what they know. And that's
yeah,
what makes the transition and transformation as a whole so challenging for people.
yeah, yeah,
It's a scary place to step into for a lot of people. So the practice really is getting used to stepping into the unknown, or getting comfortable with the unfamiliar. That's the
yeah,
journey. And that's
yeah.
the yeah,
Yeah, I
that's what
love that.
people
And it actually, it takes me back to that feeling of, you in the elements and just kind of being part of it all. I think that's such a gorgeous kind of analogy, metaphor, picture, vision, whatever you want to call it, of where we really need to be right now,
yeah,
individually and collectively, just
yeah,
in
yeah.
it, and let it
In it.
process through us. Yeah.
Yeah, in it and as it, like as part of it, not just in it, because that's
Yeah.
almost like you're an individual thing within something else, which
Yes.
we are, but we're not. We're like part of it. We're
Yeah.
as it.
Yeah. Oh my God, what a gorgeous point to end on. I love that. Yes. Wow. Thank you so much, Hayley. Where can people find you?
They can find me on Instagram. I'm at Hayley Hayley .k.north North. I always have to spell that out for some reason. I always say Hayley North, and people are like, Hayley who? Opposite of South. Yeah, so you can find me on Instagram, and you can find me on Facebook as well as Hayley K North, but probably best for Instagram. That's where I am most of the time. Most
Awesome.
often. Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you so, so much. This has been such an illuminating and invigorating conversation. So it's
Yeah.
great to get to know you a bit better.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you for having me. It's been really, really fun. And I just love stepping into a space with someone who's, open to dynamic and fluid conversation and seeing where it goes. And so much wisdom, I feel like, and insights that come to the surface from that space. So thank you for holding that and inviting me in.
Oh, thank you.